Good afternoon. My name is Mr. Broder, although my students usually call me Mr. B. My lesson today is going to be on the basic foundations of American government, and it's intended for 7th and 8th graders as a beginning point to learn how our government works. So let's take a look at this. The American system of government. So there are some key concepts that I want you to think about as we go through this. First is the idea of a government for the people, by the people. Now, at the time that our Constitution was drafted, that was really an innovative concept. Nobody had really done that before. So it's pretty important. Also, be thinking about the idea of separate but equal branches of government, because our government is really based on that principle. Finally, the idea of government power that's held in check by the Constitution. Our system of government is based on a framework dictated by the US Constitution. Now, our founders were very much aware of the idea that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, we had just at that time fought the Revolutionary War a few years before. And when our founders were drafting the Constitution, they had in mind that they had just come from a situation where they had to deal with King George, who they considered to be a tyrant. He had too much power. So when they were creating our system of government, they wanted to put in place checks and balances to keep any one individual or group of individuals from having too much power. They put the checks and balances in place so that one branch of government can always be checked by the others. Constitution allows for 3 separate but equal branches of government, each with their own powers and responsibilities. Those are executive, legislative, and judicial. So let's first take a look at the executive branch, which consists of the President of the United States. The President is the commander-in-chief of the US military. He has veto power over Congress, which we'll get into a bit when we talk about the legislative branch. The President has the ability to make appointments to fill federal positions. He's also responsible for dealing with all foreign governments. Next, we have the legislative branch. Now, the legislative branch is broken into 2 parts, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The legislative branch controls the budget and they levy taxes. They make laws that are sent to the president to either sign or veto. And Congress can then vote to override the veto with a 2/3 majority vote. And when we say veto, we're talking about the idea that Congress can pass a law and send it to the president. The president can then choose to sign the law, or he can veto it, which means it gets sent back to Congress. Congress can then override the president's veto with a 2/3 majority vote. And again, this is another one of those checks and balances that we talk about with our government. The Senate has the power to confirm presidential nominees for various posts, including judicial appointments up to the Supreme Court. Only Congress has the power to declare war. Now, if you go back and you look at a situation, for example, at the beginning of World War II, after the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor, Franklin Delano Roosevelt did not have the power to officially declare war on his own. He had to go before Congress and ask Congress, based on the specific situation, to declare war. Congress also has the ability to impeach and try federal officers, including the president. Now, for the purposes of impeachment, a person has to be found guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors. Congress can also approve treaties that are negotiated by the executive branch. So the president, as the chief executive, can go to another country and negotiate a treaty. However, in order for that treaty to be approved or ratified, that has to go through the legislative branch. Finally, we have the judicial branch. The judicial branch consists of the Supreme Court and the lower courts. The judicial branch has the power to interpret the US Constitution and determine constitutionality of laws passed by Congress and approved by the president. So you may hear when you're listening to the news that someone has gone to court to fight against a particular law. And that fight has eventually gone all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the 9-member Supreme Court then looks at that law, and they're looking at that law from the context of, is that law in line with the US Constitution? They can come back and then say, no, this law is unconstitutional and therefore has to be thrown out. Or they can come back and say, this law falls in line with the intent of the Constitution and therefore will stand. So that's just a very brief overview of our American system of government. I hope that you enjoyed that today.